Welcome back to this week's episode of the Widening Your Aperture podcast. And this week I am joined by Scott Nelson, who is a financial planner. Scott, welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. And we're going to talk about a topic that a lot of people really don't like talking about, which is money. Um, but I'm really interested in speaking with you about this because I feel like you have a very unique life-centric approach to financial planning. Can you share more about that, how it differs, what your processes look like, just kind of what you do?
Yeah, we'll get deep into it, but I consider myself a family financial planner, and more than that, a multi-generational family financial planner. I've got so much experience in seeing how some families do it right and some families do it wrong, and being open in communication and coordinating, it's powerful. So
Yes.
I take that approach with my clients as, there's different stages of life that are difficult, some that are easier, some that are confusing. And to try and go about it alone with Google as your partner instead of someone who's has the experience watching people age through, go through different age waves and things like that. So, just really helping people take all the puzzle pieces they have, put them
Yeah.
together optimally, and understanding the impact on all the generations.
Yeah. And I love that approach because it's like the situation or what you need to be focused on is very different as we go through these different phases of life, whether that be, I've just graduated from college and I'm starting my career to that mid-age life with family starting to be more important all the way to that older generation of retirement. The needs are very different.
Exactly.
So tell me a little bit more about the approaches that you use or the processes that you use within your planning.
So I mean, just to get into the multi-generation a little bit deeper, and I can share some examples of families who've done it right and who've not necessarily done it wrong. But like, um, I think about this one family that I got an email with a picture attached to it. It was right as the pandemic was at its peak, and they went maybe 6 months without seeing their parents, and finally, you know, let's all get together. On the counter at her 75-year-old parents' house was, don't forget to submit unemployment. That was a shocking revelation. My client thought that their parents were working because they needed the stimulation. They weren't good at being retired. They needed the socialization and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And when they saw that their parents were on, both of them were on unemployment at age 75, it started conversations that didn't go well. I mean,
Yeah.
so it was like, Mom, what is this about? And it turns out that, her parents were, I mean, I'll use this term a lot today, is we're all set. All
Mm-hmm.
along, their
Mm-hmm.
parents were very generous and paid for college and paid for every time they went out to dinner or brunch or whatever. We have it, we got it. And the parents never told them that they didn't have any money saved, that there's still a mortgage in the house, that they'll never retire.
Yeah.
This client is affluent. His sister
Mm-hmm.
his sister is affluent. They could very easily be helping their parents out, repaying them for all the help they've given them all the years. But there was the barrier, that
Yeah.
generation, they don't talk. So, you know, while they were generous and they did all those different things all along, being closed off about the finances, really the conversation should have happened a long, long time ago. And,
Mm-hmm.
they introduced me to the situation and I took a look at the finances and I was able to help them come up with a plan. So I was able to help their parents come up with a plan. So didn't have to rely on part-time work and, just reshuffle the deck a little bit and, save some money here, save some money there. And anyway, so that
Yeah.
was, and I don't want to talk about negative examples that much, but on the flip side, I've seen some great successes as well,
Mm-hmm.
where families work together.
So thinking about this also, like I had this situation happen because my father passed away in June. We always had the illusion, right? That he's set. He's got the house, he's got everything, all the stuff taken care of. Well, come to find out after he passed, there were a lot of unpaid bills. He had no 401k. He had not participated in the pension and there was no life insurance. It was like, oh, you are not all set at all. Like, but those were the things, you're right, that generation doesn't talk about them. So then when it comes to our generation and dealing with that, that was like a huge blow for us.
Yeah. I, I've been on a um little bit of a battle against the objection all set. And I
Yeah.
took a long time off of it. When I first started my career, God, I get PTSD thinking about this. They handed me a stack of these lead cards, and I'd spend hours and hours a week, pounding the phones. And I couldn't imagine if I had to start my business now, how I would do it. But the big thing you would hear is I'm all set, and
Hmm.
I had ways to kind of try and open people up and talk and overcome that objection of all set. And it's a lot of times just a knee-jerk reaction. It really means I don't want to talk to you. They might
Hmm.
not be all set, they may be all set. So I took a long time off of overcome that objection all set until I ran into a family a little bit similar to the situation you described with your father,
Hmm.
but it was different in the fact that, you know, he was about to turn 65 and he was about to retire and he passed away and his wife didn't know anything of the finances. She was under the impression she was even believing they were all set. And, he was always the person who's co-signed for the kids' cars. He was always the person who, paid for whatever bill. He took out a loan. It turned out that he had loans everywhere. There was so much consumer debt and there were so many co-signs of different car. It took a long time to dig through these finances for me to
Yeah.
even figure it out where everything was and how it was and how to settle this estate. And, really the communication of all set is something that we need to get people past and saying,
Hmm.
what does it really mean to be all set? And there really are people who are all set, just not optimized.
Right.
And my goal at this point is to try and help people say, hey, you may be all set,
Hmm.
but are you optimized?
Right. Right.
You know,
Yep. And it's okay to ask advice for that. I think a lot of people, this is what when I said people have a hard time talking about money, it is one of those things that you keep so close to you. You don't want to talk maybe about your situation, or like even with spouses, sometimes there's a lot of secrets about where finances are. I think this a good point is it's okay to ask for advice to make sure that you really are all set. And like you said, are you actually optimized?
well, I mean, to go down that road, um, I mean, we're recording this in near the end of February.
Hmm.
So a lot of people who have had their New Year's resolutions, they may still be going, they may not be going, but um, the big resolution is to lose weight. And admittedly, I know I need to do some changing, but hey, I saw a Facebook ad. I clicked on it about intermittent fasting. Pretty cool, huh? I can
Huh?
change I can keep on eating what I want. I don't have to exercise and all this different great stuff. And I didn't buy the course. I just Googled something. I learned about it and I did it for a few weeks. And I said, this is silly.
Yeah.
Finances are the same way. It, it can be as simple as you eat less calories than you burn, you lose weight.
Hmm.
You spend less than you earn and you save that difference and you do it for long enough, you'll be able to retire.
Yep.
But it's not as simple as that. If you just do that, the simplicity of it, you may be all set. I don't need a nutritionist to tell me how to count calories, but
Right.
I may need a nutritionist to tell me what types of calories my body needs,
Hmm.
what
For
types of
sure.
exercises or timing of the day, of meals, and all these different things that I don't even consider that I could probably Google, but I'll
Yep.
never put together in the right order because it's not my expertise and I'm only doing it once and I don't have any
Correct.
history or backing to do it. So same thing with the finances. You can max out your 401k for 30 years, have a big pile of money at the end of the road, and retire comfortably. But could you have done it a little bit differently? Could you saved
Yeah.
more, retired earlier? Could you have saved differently? So,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is like you can get an expert in there to change the things, use the assets, the income, the calories, the whatever it may be,
Hmm.
show you the path of least resistance towards your goals.
Yes. Yes. I would absolutely agree. I mean, that's a great analogy that you gave there, because I think a lot of people understand like the nutrition, the dieting, that sort of thing. Like, what are the benefits of having a financial planner versus do it yourself route?
Time, time saved on it. I think about my life. If I spend all day getting the kids ready for school, going to work, running errands, getting the kids home from school, doing dinner, doing bedtime routine. 8 o'clock comes around. I finally, hopefully, have everyone in bed. The last thing I want to do is open up my employee benefits book, look up my stock charts, research this, the new tax law changes, how it's affecting me. I mean, and so basically giving you and the other thing I don't want to do is I just don't want to ignore it.
Right.
So having the
Right.
peace of mind that something as crucial as this is being taken care of, it's being optimized, it's being simplified, and now I can go on and binge watch something on Netflix for
Right.
15 minutes before I fall asleep on the couch with a remote in my hand. I mean, so it's what I want to do with my time. The other thing is accountability.
Hmm.
I mean, if I actually paid for a course on intermittent fasting, I had someone who I was meeting on a weekly basis, working on my fitness and my nutrition, it might have lasted more than 3 or 4 weeks.
Right.
Um, so the accountability of having somebody who will actually follow up and say, hey, we talked about this type of account. Did you switch your 401k to a Roth 401k yet? No, you haven't got around to it. Let's do it. It'll take you 5 minutes. Do it today, please.
Hmm.
You know, so having an accountability coach is something
Yeah.
huge as well.
Yeah. I know for me, it's like the thought of like when you start getting into like trying to do it yourself finances, it's overwhelming. I mean, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of things that I don't understand. And then it's like, now I got to go study that. So like, you're right. All this time I'm spending, and time to me is my most valuable resource because we
Mm.
don't get time back. So that makes perfect sense to me to say, you're the expert on this. Here's my situation. And you're fine tuning it to that person's situation.
Mm. Well, I have I've understood this for a while, and I actually tailored my service offerings to three different levels.
Mm-hmm.
One of them is do it myself. A lot of people want to do it themselves, but they don't know where to look for the information. So I've given them the tools during this package. It's $50 a month. They have access to the financial planning tools. They
Mm-hmm.
have me to proofread their inputs. Each month they get a financial planning topic with a demo on how to use that tool to model their situation.
Mm-hmm.
And then they have access to me, my other services as well. But that's really just to get in the door.
Yeah.
And I like to give that for free to my clients' grandkids. So if a client has a grandkid graduating college, use my tool for the first 3 years after you use college at no
Wonderful.
cost to you, just to get them the foundation to
Yes.
understand the different things and the tools like that. And really, it's just a way to get people who really want to do it themselves, who are smart enough, but don't want to go on some Google deep dive and not
Yeah.
sure which tangents they're on.
Right.
Take some of the resources I have available on that. And the next step up from there is do it with me. Some people who
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, I did this financial plan for myself. Do you want to take a look at it? And, at the end of this podcast, I'm going to show an example of what they would get on that, where I would boil down all that information into a one-page financial plan for
Mm-hmm.
them. So, hey, you do all that do it yourself stuff. Get it in there. I'll take all that information and boil it down to one page for you. And on an annual basis, we'll update that one page plan and make sure you're on track. And the
Wow,
third
that's
offering is
fantastic.
the do it for me. The people who just
Mm-hmm.
want to say, I'm too
Hands
busy.
off.
I'll give you all the information. You put the puzzle together and run with it.
Mm-hmm. So when it comes to like hiring a financial advisor, what do you think are some questions that people should ask when they're in kind of that interview process with somebody, to know that because I think this is very important that it's a good fit between you and your advisor.
I mean, you can Google or ask ChatGPT, question as financial advisors, but they're going to be very generic, and the financial advisors will be able to come up with the right answers for you. It's really just during a 15-minute conversation. Does it feel right? Does this
Mm-hmm.
person, when I talk to this person, does it feel like they understand me? Do they get me?
Yeah.
Or are they talking to me as if I'm just part of the process? Am I just am I on the conveyor belt for this practice? Do they hit all the different buzzwords? Are they a fiduciary?
Yeah.
Are they in my best interest contract? I mean, there's all different terms that we use that people might not understand, but in a conversation with somebody, you should be able to have a very good feeling whether or not they understand you
Mm-hmm.
and there's someone you want to like. This is a long-term relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you don't have to, you can break up with a financial advisor. It's not easy. Um, we can talk about how to do that, but you're meeting somebody who you're going to be meeting with and sharing intimate details about your family
Yep.
hopefully for decades. You know, I've got clients from when I first started 20 years, and I've got 4 generations of families. We started talking about multi-generational financial planning. Is this somebody you want to be part of your family story and
Right,
help you
right.
craft it?
Yep.
So, what questions you can get there? I'm not sure. I think it's more
Yeah,
more of a feeling than anything.
for sure. And I think it's, something that comes to mind with me too. I know a lot of people, when they decide to go get a financial advisor there, I think again, there's a lot of this, like what you've been hiding, like almost shame around, like, here's my situation. I'm coming in and maybe it's a lot of debt, or maybe it's, whatever the situation might be. And feeling comfortable enough to say that to somebody and not feeling like that judgment back, or like, the response of like, oh, this is terrible. It's, I think you have to find somebody that you feel comfortable with sharing that information with, even if it is a bad, you're in a bad situation, knowing that you aren't going to feel judged or shamed, or, in return.
No, I mean there's times in your life, and back to the multi-generational financial planning theme, that are difficult, that are
Hmm.
expensive, that are stressful. And having the support system and someone who understands these and understanding, like, you know, um, when you first have children,
Hmm.
it's overwhelming from a financial standpoint, from a, learning new things. I mean, God, we talked about Google already. If I looked at my Google search and the pictures on my text message back and forth between my wife and I back then, like, not to get gross, but I got a text message that says, "Is this normal?" It's a picture of a diaper. I'm like, I don't know. So I started Googling, just like the different stuff that's going on in your mind. You're sleep
Yeah.
deprived. You're not sure, can I afford to have one spouse home? What's it, do I need more life insurance? Do I need this? All these things to be completely overwhelming. So, the
Yes.
stages in your life, you have to learn not to shame yourself. You have to enjoy
Hmm.
the ride.
Hmm.
Um, between 0 and 5, between daycares and preschools and extra expenses of diapers and strollers and car seats, all these
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
And that's an expensive, stressful time. The other time
Yep.
is when the kids are in college.
Hmm.
You know, a lot of people think, they see their 2 kids who are all set. Um, they've got 2 high-paying jobs, but now one person's working part-time and they have all these extra expenses, and they live in this
Hmm.
beautiful metro area condo, and he's a doctor and she's a lawyer, and my kids, they are all set. Guess what? We talked about that blog, it's $350,000 middle class
Hmm.
lifestyle in a metro area. They could be struggling. They may on the surface look like they're all set, but they may be struggling.
Yeah.
And concurrently, you may be at the age where you need a required minimum distribution. The government is forcing you to take money out of your account. You've been a
Hmm.
great saver, a horrible spender. What am I going to do with this $50,000 check?
Hmm. Yeah.
My kids don't need it. They're all set. Guess what? If you had a multi-generational financial plan, you'd probably understand that, boy, your kids right now, they were all set for 10 years. They're going to struggle for 5, and they're going to be all set again when the 5 years
Yeah.
are over. Can you
Yep.
maybe do a little something to help them?
Yes. Yes.
So,
What about the individual? Like I see the example in like the multi-generational with children. But kind of thinking, I'd shared with you that I had read this article last week, and it was kind of just talking about the status of the average American. And I think a lot of this is post-pandemic that hit a lot of people hard. There was job losses, or and not being able to find work after that. I think that there's still a lot of recovery that's happening, to this day. So for the family maybe that doesn't have kids, or the single people, what would a plan maybe look like for them to get them back on track? So like, so some of the stats that were in this article is like 66% of Americans own their home, but if they lost their income, 37% of households couldn't last a month. Americans owe almost 17 trillion in total debt, with the average American individual owing over $100,000 in debt. The American average credit card balances are over 5,800. The average American has 65,000 in their retirement savings, and over 50% of households had either borrowed money from or lent it to friends and family. It's crazy.
those numbers are scary and overwhelming.
Yeah.
the now each family and individual that adds up to that is its own unique story. So it's
Sure.
difficult to say, but I understand where that trend has come from.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as a country, right or wrong, I'm not going to get political. We injected trillions of dollars into our economy to get us through this pandemic. Sometimes the aftershock is worse than the earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
What's happening now is, we've been battling inflation. Luckily, it seems to be under control, but it's not transient inflation where we went up for a little bit, we're coming back down. We just notched it up a bit. And people, believe it or not, actually lived a more expensive lifestyle before the inflation. They increased their lifestyle during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was psychological that they were buying things they might not have needed
Right.
because they were, had the money, the pandemic money was coming in, and they wanted to feel good about something.
Mm-hmm.
So, perhaps we formulated some bad habits. And then now that that money is no longer being injected in the economy and things are more expensive
Mm-hmm.
and job and prices aren't going up and the um almost like the NBA, the player empowerment movement, the back in 2020, people could leave their jobs and find another one that's better. And that slowed down quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So the people being able to upgrade their jobs to keep up with the extra lifestyle, that's not happening as much as it was. And that's where we were at.
Yeah.
I think the key is to really take an open, honest look at individual finances
Mm-hmm.
and to bring it back to the simplicity of the dieting.
Yep. Yep.
Everyone just has to figure out a way to spend less than they're taking in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and save something. You know, I have a budgeting system, a six hub system where it really takes into account, just bringing it back to the basics.
Mm-hmm.
You pay yourself first, you automate things. You, I don't like the word budget because it really scares people,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's an approach where you just have to make sure that the rocks are in place. The, you know, your bills, your cash reserve is there. And it's really just getting honest with yourself. And feeling vulnerable. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
basically, go to a financial planner who can do some budgeting for you. Doesn't mind um, giving you the honest truth in a straightforward manner and say,
Yeah.
let's take a look at your expenses. Is there anything here we can cut and make sure that you are at least saving up a cash reserve so you don't lose your house if you lose your income
Mm-hmm.
for a short period of time.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's super smart. And I think that I think if more people took advantage of that, I don't know. I feel like there's some relief in like when you're in a bad situation, like a lot of these people are, just to be able to go to somebody and to hear we have a plan. We could make a plan for this.
Yeah.
Like this isn't going to be the end kind of thing. Because I think a lot of people just start freaking out, and then it's like it cycles and cycles and builds and builds, and it's like just stop, ask for help, start with that. Your budgeting tool, that 6 steps to setting up a financial hub, that's free on your website, correct?
Yep.
For
Correct.
anybody to access.
Correct. And the approach of sticking going like an ostrich and sticking your head in the sand is the wrong thing, but that's what people do.
Yeah.
If you don't want to talk to a financial planner or open yourself vulnerability, that's what my $50 a month package is. Get yourself all those tools, get them
Mm-hmm.
all there. And then if you say to me, part of that, can you take a look at, spend an hour, take a look at
Yeah.
my budget finance and give me advice? You know, I would charge a 1 hour of financial planning fee for
Mm-hmm.
that. So rather than, just, if you want to do it on yourself, do it yourself first, use the tool, get yourself organized.
Mm-hmm.
The system, you can read about it on that blog. All the information is right there for you. But in order to get access to the tool that will actually automate and track your
Mm-hmm.
budgeting,
Mm-hmm.
that's part of the $50 a month package for the do-it-yourselfers.
Okay. So kind of maybe the first step is the budgeting tool, and then you would take that and then do the $50. Is that $50 a month? I'm sorry, you mentioned this of the do it yourself.
Yeah, so it's in all the budgeting tools for all the packages, but the first one where you access to my software
Mhm.
The financial planning software, that software is part of that $50 a month package.
Okay, perfect, which is totally affordable.
Mm.
Absolutely
Yeah,
worth it.
I tried to just make it so I don't lose money. You know, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure people
of
have
course.
access to the tools. Everyone does.
Yeah. Yep. So there's a couple of other things that I want to touch on with you as well. Um, I've mentioned to you before, I think in our planning call, the question that I asked you is why don't the Dave Ramsey or Susie Orman approaches work? Because these have been around for a really long time. And then you look at the situation that we're in and we're like, obviously it didn't work.
Deep breath. Let's see. I think it's a lot to do with the shame
Mm,
of the finances where you're not doing enough. And I don't know if your audience is old enough to remember the Susie Orman show where someone would call in. I think Dave Ramsey does it now, where someone would call in and say, "Here's my finances. Can I afford that cruise or can I afford this?" And it was like,
mm,
"You can't afford it." And she would like yell into the camera and like make these people feel bad that like, and I think to myself, can they? I think they can. What is so they teach people to be such great savers and horrible
mhm,
spenders. Um, a lot of times, so just to back up in financial planning, you can save money and build up the biggest tax time bomb you want. But eventually the IRS says you have to take required minimum distributions from your account because they've let you defer these taxes for long enough. And eventually, I can't tell you how many times someone's very first withdrawal is when they're required to. It used to be at age 70, now it's up to age 75. So someone might have this account they've saved into their entire life and they're afraid to spend because they've been, I got to save this money. I got to save this money. And then
yeah.
once it's time to start spending and enjoying it, they just don't.
Yeah.
Um,
I want you to tell the
so
story about that family that relates to this, that they were planning the vacation of having all of their kids come and meet them, because I think that is a beautiful example of this.
yeah, so um, back in 2008, 9, it was their 50-year anniversary. They had this goal that we were working towards that they were going to bring all the kids, all the grandkids to a villa in Tuscany. They were going to rent it for an entire month. They were going to have a round trip ticket available for anybody to come and go as they please. That was their 50-year anniversary present to themselves. The global financial crisis hit. They saw their accounts go down and they were like, oh my gosh, and so got laid off. And maybe we'll just delay it. Maybe we won't do it now. They never did it, and fast forward a few years, they sold their boat because they were too old to use their boat. They got rid of their golf membership. They realized that the money was there. They had enough to do that, and they had enough to finish their life and have enough. Now one of them has passed away. Kids are across the country, grandkids are across the country and different corners of the country. And his biggest regret was that he didn't go on that trip. So that's kind of what inspired my Don't Skip the Memories blog. Don't skip the $5 coffee. Enjoy the ride. It makes me sad just even thinking about the fact that like, how important money is the tool
Mhm.
to get the things that you
Yeah.
want. And they were just nervous to spend the money because they weren't sure where the world was going. And even if they spent that money and the world didn't turn around, they would have had that memory and they would have been all set.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, it's that when you think about the time missed, the opportunity, the memory missed there. I think that's what, like when you told me that story, it just went straight to the heart. It's like such a bold reminder, I think, in that.
yep. And I mean, on the flip side, there's good outcomes that can come
Mhm.
from not skipping the memories. One of the biggest obstacles I'm finding in retirees is not having a purpose. When
Mm,
people I have this blog I've been working on for a while and I'm trying to get it right, but I had a client who was young 50s and he had what was thought to be incurable cancer and
mhm.
he retired early. Miraculously, he survived. and then he was in his mid 50s and he didn't have a purpose. And he ended up going back to work, not because he needed it. He was financially all set. He didn't have to go back to work, but he didn't have his purpose lined up. He didn't have, so it makes me realize that one of the biggest obstacles isn't the money, it's the what you lose. You can't
Yeah.
do something, rewind all the way to school age. You can't do something from you know, from 6 years old, get up,
Hmm.
have breakfast, go somewhere all day, come home, have dinner, get used to a 40, 50, 60 year routine, then all of a sudden turn it off. And the first day after retirement, you wake up, what do I do now? Um,
Yeah.
so
I
I'm trying to
totally
tell
get
people to
this.
find, you know,
My mom is 73. She's still working full time. Um, there's this possibility that the company she's working for is going to sell the department that she works for to an outside vendor. So she's like, I'm gonna, could possibly lose my job. And I'm like, well, then just retire. And she's like, I will go crazy. I will have nothing to do. All I know to do is work. And I'm like, you need to start fostering some hobbies, like things outside of work that you love to do. But I think this is a really big problem with that generation, is that they just worked, work, work. They never built this life outside of work, or found purpose in other things. And now when you're right, you get to retirement, and they're like, well, what do I do with my life?
I was reading a study. This was part of this blog about thousands of retirees talking about what their biggest fears are, and the first one was regret. I miss a quote was, I miss doing the work that I love. I'm
Hmm.
not sure what to do with my time. I feel lost. Health was second, keeping my mind healthy and
Hmm.
adding value to the world. Fear of dying in pain and discomfort.
Yeah.
When you're 70 with a heart condition, you don't get many more bites at that apple. Uh,
Hmm.
Third was identity. Fear of
Yeah.
losing my identity created it over a lifetime. People do not see you anymore. Feelings
Hmm.
of rejection, internalized, not voiced.
Yep.
Just all that comes back to losing your purpose. And if what your purpose was to earn money and save money, it takes a lot of mind shifting to go into the phase where you feel comfortable
Yeah. Yep.
spending money and
Yep.
you know spending money and enjoying your life and not feeling guilty about you know getting that golf cart and golfing once a week.
Hmm.
Doing whatever makes you happy, joining that club. um and if going back to work is what made you happy, that's for some people too.
Yeah. I think a lot of it too is that generation very much grew up with like a scarcity mindset. Their parents probably didn't have very much, which then they didn't have very much growing up. It was hold on to things, use sparingly, save, don't spend. And I think that just kind of got ingrained into them too, that it's like, you never know when something's going to go wrong and you want to be prepared for it. But then you're right, you get to the end and it's like, well, you prepared for all these catastrophes that didn't happen. And now what? So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So, I mean, along those lines, like a lot of people, their
Mhm.
purpose is the grandkids. A lot of
Yeah.
people, they retire when the grandkids come. And I'm thinking of another example. So, if you don't mind me sharing another multi-generational family, because this
Yeah.
this one
Yeah.
is this one is one of my favorites.
Yep.
Without giving you too many details, because they'll probably actually listen to this podcast, and they'll know I'm generally talking about them, changing enough facts that they'll be okay with it.
Yeah.
So, one of my very first clients about almost 20 years ago now, they were in their young 40s, and somehow they let some 24-year-old kid come into their house. I probably overcame the all set objection on the phone. And, I met their family. I sat down at their kitchen table. At that time, they had um, a 10 and an 8-year-old child. We talked about saving for their college, about retirement, all these different things. And through
Mhm.
the years of working together, I kept on going to the house and seeing the kids and getting to know their family. They mentioned their parents. They mentioned all the other people. That family turned into a conversation about there's a legacy property. Um, the mother, still alive
Mhm.
at that time, was I think she was about 80 years old, had a property that was important to her. Nothing else mattered as far as like the stocks and the bonds and all that other stuff. But like, there was this lake house
Hmm.
that was built by his father, and his mother was still alive. And they wanted to make sure that the siblings and grandkids and stuff that house is protected.
Hmm.
But what's going to happen as she gets older, and money runs out? Is she going to have to sell the house? What's going to happen? So we started talking about estate planning, and the big family goal, the siblings and the mom were all on the page. Let's try and set something up to preserve that property.
Hmm.
So we have the the like we call the mother, and then the kids are now grown. They're through college. We help them save for college, and they're on their own. They're buying houses, and now there's grandkids involved. So now, when the grandkids are involved, we set up the college savings plans. Instead of buying them all the plastic stuff in the stroller, why don't you put $1,000 into a stock on
Hmm.
the day they're born that they'll understand? Start teaching about the money. So now we have 4 generations in this family of clients of my practice. And as things happen, you know, we're all in communication.
Yep.
Do so and so need some help now? Is so and so okay? We have this money coming in from the grandma. Is she going to be okay? Do we need to do anything it's just amazing to see the power of working as a unit. And,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
got hopefully coming up soon, my second 4 generation family coming up later this year because there's another pregnancy for a grandkid. So, it's just very fulfilling to
Yeah.
see this.
I was just about to say that that's got to be so like wonderful for you to see these generations grow, and how they've grown as a family, not just financially, but really, truly, you're kind of a part of their family in a sense.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, the legacy can be the money,
Hmm.
or it can be the memories
Yep.
or the lessons. you know, let's go to another
Hmm.
client. This woman who had a required minimum distribution. She's never spent a penny. She's got a pension. She's got Social Security. She's got real estate income. She doesn't need it, but she
Hmm.
saved it because she was told she should. And
Yep.
I was like, what are you going to do with this $50,000 check? It's, December now. You have to take money out of your account before the end of the year. You get penalties
Hmm.
and stuff like that. So what we did was she has 5 grandkids, aged 10 to 18. We set up an investment club. She said to each of them, you have to go on a Zoom with Scott.
Hmm.
He's going to teach you about investing, between 10 and 18. So I'm talking, very general stuff, but really just talking about, stocks and companies and what a stock means. So they had to sit through half-hour Zoom with me where I'm teaching them about investing. Then I gave them a homework assignment. I said, think about a company that could be a stock. What's a company that you see your family use? What's a
Hmm.
company that you think is getting better? What company do you think is going to still be around when you're a grown up? We're going to come back in 2 weeks and have another Zoom, and each of you are going to tell me which company you think would be a good investment. And you're going to make a presentation to your brothers and sisters and your cousins. And at the end of the Zoom, I want you to tell me which company you want to invest in. So the grandma spent her RMD to
Hmm.
give each of them money to start an account where they each buy you know what? They all bought each other stocks. So they each put equal shares, 20% into all 5 stocks, and they all have the same portfolio. And, we're going to revisit it next year at the same time. And if grandma doesn't have anything to use for the RMD again, she'll do it each year
Yeah.
as long as she has it. So did she pass along money right there, or did she pass along a lesson?
Right. A
So
hundred
that's how a
percent.
legacy is built right there.
100%. And it actually brings me to a really good question, because I don't think in our normal education system that we are taught about money. We are not taught about how stocks work, how the stock market works. We're not taught about how 401ks work. We're not taught about budgeting. We're taught about all these other things, but never really taught about money. So obviously you have kids. What would be your advice to, well, just people in general, but people with kids, about teaching your kids what money is, how it works?
So start early, even if it's a tiny, tiny bit. Um, you know, the default is when a kid is born, you open up a plan called a 529 plan. It's a tax-free college savings vehicle. That's what
Hmm.
people do. Just like, when you go to work, you sign up for 401k. It's what's there, it's what's easy, it's what everyone else is doing.
Yep.
The missing piece is whether it's a $500 or $1,000, buy a stock for
Hmm.
them when they're a baby. And I have a blog on my website about, when my fourth was born, about the stocks I bought for the first three and kind of crowdsourcing what people thought I should buy for the fourth stock. Whether it's this is not me giving stock advice. Don't go out and buy these
Yeah.
stocks because you listen to a podcast. But when
Do
my
your
first was
research.
when my first was born, we bought Google. Then second, we
Hmm.
bought Amazon. Then we bought Apple. These are companies that now, when my 10-year-old sees an Amazon package come, he makes the joke saying, well, at least we own some stock in that company, or like we buy a new iPhone or iPad, you know, they understand that they own a tiny fraction of that company, and with that
Hmm.
company makes money by selling things, and it's just a good way to like kind of teach them about how the world works, and
Yeah.
get them started early at thinking about that.
Hmm.
Second one is your kids. Once they're old enough to earn a little bit of money, so my parents did for me was, if I had a $20 lawn mowing job, they'd say, give me 10, we'll match it like a 401k, and we'll put
Hmm.
it into your college savings plan. So I'd run to the mailbox and see that deposit going in, a $20 deposit, because and I take $10 and probably bring it to Taco Bell or
Right.
whatever, or
Yeah.
7-Eleven or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'd spend 10,
Yep.
but I'd save 10.
Hmm.
And they incentivized me to do it, and they taught me about it, and turned into a career.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
loved seeing that those shares accumulate and setting a goal and things like that. And so you can do small little things to get them
Hmm.
excited about the power of
Yeah.
saving.
Yeah. And what would be your advice for like the adult who never got that education from their kid or from their parents or the system, educational system, to learn more about stuff like this, to learn these things?
Um, Find someone you trust or you find interesting or entertaining and follow them on social media, perhaps.
Okay. Or
Follow me
their
on LinkedIn.
podcast?
I post quite a bit on LinkedIn. I have a YouTube channel, but
Hmm.
just kind of start educating yourself on it. But I think the key is it can be as simple as take care of the basics, spend less than I guess the biggest lesson is you have to spend less than you earn.
Then you
You,
earn.
you can't you
Hmm.
can't run a negative.
It starts with that. Yeah.
You gotta find that. And once you do that, get used to paying yourself first. Little things add up over a long time. Just like the dieting, you might have a cheat day or cheat this. You might have to take some money out of your investment account. But if you do these little things systematically, incrementally over the course of
Yes.
time, they just add up.
Yes.
The worst thing you can do is say, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll start next year. Because before you know it, you'll blink your eyes and
Yeah.
you'll be, you'll, I'm not saying too late, but you'll be very far behind and the catch up is much harder than,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah. And it's true. I think that principle as well, like small changes compound into large changes. That's for dieting, that's for exercise. It's the same thing for money. If you can find that 1%, that $1, whatever it is, and start putting it away and make that a discipline over time, you're going to see that grow and it's worth it.
One of my most popular YouTube videos was I trained for the Boston Marathon,
Yeah,
and
I
I
watched
and I
that. It
had,
was
had
great.
kind of a tongue in cheek had how does a financial planner train for a marathon video. And the same thing is like I started, I got found out that I got my winning bid where I had to raise a ton of money for a charity to get
Hmm.
into the Boston Marathon, but they gave me 5 months notice. They said, congratulations, you can run the Boston Marathon in April, and it's already November. So first thing I did, I went to Google and Googled how to train for a marathon in 5 months. And the answers were overwhelming, and
Yeah.
none of them spoke to me. None of them
Yeah.
were, they don't know where I am.
Right.
They know my goal, but they don't know where I'm starting.
Yep.
They don't know the resources I have. They don't know what time I have. At that time, I had 3 kids. They don't know my limitations. They didn't know anything. It was just a schedule. On
Yep.
Monday, run this far. On Tuesday, stretch. On
Yep.
Wednesday, do this. And it was like, how in the world am I going to do that? I can't even day one. I can't do what they're asking for day one. I need to build towards that. So what I did is I just approached it. Here's where I am. Here's where I want to be. What little steps do I have to do to get there?
Yep.
I went to the gym, got on the treadmill. I jogged for 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I walked for one. Jogged for 3 minutes, walked for one. Next day, I jogged for 4 minutes, walked for one. And I added that little extra minute, didn't make much of a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And each day I added 1 minute to the jog, walk one, until I got to the point on, I got, what is it, 45 days later, I was running 60 minutes
Yep. Yeah.
without stopping
Yeah.
after a month and a half. I was like, wow, now maybe I should Google train for a marathon in 4 months. Now that I'm this, no, I'm going to keep on doing this. So
Mm-hmm.
then I took my 60 minutes of running and extended it to 65 minutes, 70 minutes. Each day, each workout, I added 5 minutes to it. I couldn't tell the difference. My body didn't know the difference between 60 and 65 by the time I got
Yep.
there. And I started adding a little bit of time to it. And, not to give you the whole YouTube video, but that's essentially what I did is I just kept on making little incremental changes on a day-to-day basis that didn't hurt.
Yep.
It had me on track for my goal.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. And you did run the Boston Marathon.
Okay, spoiler alert. It was 2020. It got
Mm-hmm.
canceled. I got to the point where I was ready. I achieved my goal by raising $15,000 for a charity.
Mm-hmm.
I got to the point where I confidently know that I could have run that marathon if it came down to it. Then it got canceled and I was heartbroken. But again, like any goal, you have to be flexible. You have to
Yep.
understand there's obstacles that can come up. So I
Yes.
shifted the goal where they actually offered the Boston Marathon virtually,
Hmm.
where 6 months, I think in September, so 5 months later, they had the virtual Boston Marathon, um, where everyone had an app and you ran it on your own. You can run the course or you could run. So I chose my town. There's a beach that runs 10 miles from end to end,
Mm-hmm.
on a nice boardwalk. And so it was a very special place for me. I was able to run by my house. I was able to do a loop of all the special places in town. I was able to have my kids with signs. So I achieved my running a marathon, Boston Marathon goal. It wasn't the one I envisioned, and
Yep.
I'm probably gonna have to raise money for charity and do it again sometime because I still want that feeling of running down Beacon Street and through the through the streets of
Yep.
Boston,
With the
and where
crowds.
where a lot of my memories, and that's one of the special days in Boston, and it's probably one of my very favorite days of the year where
Mhm.
you know as you run down that road you see people's lifetime goals happening right in front of your eyes.
Yeah.
Brings you to tears thinking about
Yeah.
like your mile 25. I don't care about the people run 2 hours. I care about the people running 5 hours who've put everything they have into this, and you
Yeah.
watching them 1 mile away from achieving that goal. I get chills even thinking about it.
Oh
So I
yeah.
like that feeling.
Yes.
So
Yes.
my achieving my goal was special in its own way, but it
Hmm.
wasn't the one I was setting out for. So
Yeah.
that's what financial planning is all about. It's not going to
Right.
necessarily work out exactly how you thought, but
Yep.
if you did the things to get yourself in position, you're ready for whatever comes at you.
Absolutely. And I'm a runner, so I completely agree on those long runs. I mean, watching the person next to you who is just slugging it out, it's like, it's so inspirational.
Yeah.
You're rooting for that person because you know what you've put in and now you know what they've put in. And yeah, it's definitely something it's a great experience.
I mean,
Um,
every single person there raised a significant amount of money towards a
yeah.
charity that they're
Yep.
passionate about.
Yep. It's incredible. It's really incredible. So when we talk too about like, the savings of like putting a little bit aside, that's going to compound over time. I think one of the big obstacles that comes up when to do that is when people are in debt. And obviously debt, you want to pay that off as fast as possible. So what is your approach with your clients when tackling debt?
So when tackling debt, the key is to make sure that you're paying off the highest interest rate things first. You know, come up with a spreadsheet, put what your balance is, what the monthly payment is, and what the interest rate is,
Mhm.
and chip away at the highest interest rate first. Get those payments down. And once that payment is done, make sure you always hit the minimums and always hit
Mhm.
don't disregard the other ones because that interest rate will bloom. But you have to just knock down the biggest interest rates first. all while not adding, you know,
More.
more on any other
Yeah.
place. So, really just get realistic and honest with yourself about the
Hmm.
spending.
Hmm.
Make it a humongous priority. I would never want to see somebody not put money into a 401k that has a match as the first priority. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of things combating here because you need a cash reserve. If there's an emergency
Right.
opportunity, you don't have to go into debt for it.
Hmm.
But is that interest rate on that debt so astronomical that you should not put money in a 401k? It's debatable. I
Hmm.
mean, you have a 1 year vesting schedule in the 401k, and I know we were going to talk about
Yeah. I
401ks
was
at
going to
time.
say, we'll put a pin in the 401k
Yeah.
talk.
So I think you know paying down the highest interest rate first, getting an idea on how long it's going to take to do it, and just getting a plan together and sticking to it and saying, it might take 3 years to get this
Hmm.
debt paid down, but if you have a goal in writing that you're committed to, it's much better than just sticking your head in the sand and just saying,
Yeah.
I'm going to pay what I can, and oh, this month I can, this month I can't. No, that's the first thing that comes out each month.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. So then I'm assuming that it's like once you've paid off that the highest interest, then you go to the next highest interest, same thing, and just keep working that down until it's
Yep.
gone. Yep.
Yep.
Okay.
That dirty budgeting word is what you need to have done though, because
Yeah.
like part of the 6 step hub approach is, identifying here's the money coming in,
Hmm.
here's the money coming out all the different directions. Um, so having those in place is what we need to do.
Okay. Perfect. So to now reach back to the 401k topic, um, if somebody is significantly in debt, is it smart to not participate in the 401k until you get yourself to a place where you can afford to do that?
That is a very difficult question to
Yeah.
answer. And part of knowing where you are and where you want to
Hmm.
go
Hmm.
comes into that equation because the lost time of that
Yeah.
free money of the 401k match is something you'll never get back.
Right.
If there is a path towards investing in the 401k up to the match and doing the debt repayments, that's the ultimate. I mean, you got
Ideal.
to keep those payments coming because the time value and the compounding and the growth of the
Sure.
money, the shares that you're buying today are ones you're going to be living on 30 years from now. So
Right.
you need to make sure that those you're accumulating shares of the U.S. economy. And then the fact that they're matching you,
Hmm.
we gotta make sure we take advantage of the free money. So that's powerful. So
Yes.
if at all possible, keep the 401k going. Now, I've seen people with, putting 15% to their 401k
Hmm.
and then who are in debt. And as much as accumulating those assets is very important, bring it down to where the company matches you
Yeah.
and use those extra
Yeah.
money to pay down the debt because you can't be going two opposite directions.
Hmm.
Um, so, if that's the case where you're saving, you're on track for retirement, but you're growing your debt, it's playing a
Right.
tug of war. So,
Gotcha. Gotcha. And you speak about the employer match. This is maybe a myth that I've heard out in the world is that you should only contribute the amount to your 401k that your company matches. Probably
that's
situational
very
again.
that's a very general thing
Yeah.
for. I mean, each person's. I have in my mind my order of operations of how I'd invest money if I had it.
Hmm.
Everyone needs a cash reserve.
Yep.
So making sure you have something there for emergency opportunities. If you need new tires in the car, something
Are we
there so you
talking
have
like
it.
a 3 month cash reserve?
3 to 6 months,
Okay.
depending. And some people, if they're self-employed or on commissions or whatnot, you
Hmm.
might want more. You
Hmm.
might
Yeah.
want 12 months of cash reserve and how to structure it. If you're getting ready to retire, you might want even more, but so in case to combat if the market's down, so you can have some cash to live on. So, um, but for general, 3 to 6 months, 6 months is usually adequate.
Hmm.
So once you have that in place, as you're doing that, make sure you're taking care of the 401k match. I love health savings accounts. They're great tax benefits. I love Roth IRAs. Um, Having a plan in place to save the money,
Hmm.
the order of operations I have in my mind, but having the or having the debt really interjects itself somewhere on line one A, one B, somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Okay.
So, the order of operations, I would say only putting money in the 401k up to a match
Okay.
is a
Yeah.
is a fine strategy because you're going to want to do, the Roth IRA, the HSA, the college savings plans, the other goals, having the liquid account, the cash reserve. And then once you achieve all that, it gets much more complicated.
Hmm.
At that point, you have to have a conversation with the financial planner. If you can take care of the 4 or 5 easy things that you
Yeah.
can find on my website, then you probably need a financial planner to tell you, hey, I still have an extra, now that my debt's paid and I'm doing
Hmm.
these 4 or 5 basic things, what's the next? Should I go back and put more money in the 401k? Should I do the Roth 401k? Should I do a brokerage account? Should I save whatever it could be, you
Right.
know?
Right. Okay. And that makes sense. It's like you have to get all your eggs in the basket before you can start to work up from there. But with your clients, you get clients that are at this basic stage, correct? Where it's like they're coming in and don't have, maybe they have debt. They don't necessarily have this cash reserve set up. Um, and that's something that you walk people through that process of getting those things put together.
Certainly. I mean, basically, that's why I try to get my clients with their kids and their grandkids to start
Yeah.
thinking about
Yeah.
this, hopefully, hopefully while they're in high school. But
Yeah.
hopefully, I'm one of the first people they call when they had that first job.
Yep.
Should I repay my student loans faster? Should I save in
Hmm.
the 401k? Should I put this here? Let's just get a starter plan going.
Yeah.
It won't take me long to show you this basic puzzle, how to put it together.
Hmm.
You know, having a game plan in mind when you don't have much as far as obstacles yet,
Hmm.
not so hard to do. It's
Yeah.
just you need to just spend an hour doing it.
Right. I think this ties in really well to your one page plan. And I love this because I feel like a lot of times when you go to a financial planner, you give them all the information and here comes back like the 60-page like plan. And you're like, you lost me on like page 4. So you have this product called the one page plan. I'd love for you to share what
Yeah,
that is.
let me pull up my screen share. So this is just a example of a family I was helping with. And they came to me with some different goals. So
Hmm.
the first thing, like we always say, is you first have to figure out where you are. So net worth snapshot, they have cash, they have some real estate with a significant mortgage. Um, so they've been saving. They're in their mid 30s,
Hmm.
2 kids, significant income. So their annual income is $210,000. And I have broken down what their budget is and available to allocate down here. So
Okay.
all of this on one page. So you mentioned a 60-page plan. I've seen people with up to 90-page pension plans, and raise my hand, I'm guilty of it. When I first started, I used these plans as a crutch. I would have a family come in and I would have them sit at my I'm cringe even thinking about it. They'd be sitting in the office and I'd give me, look at this chart, and this says this, and this number says this, and all these different fancy graphs and things. And then here's a 4-page list of to-dos. And it just is, it was overwhelming. And I couldn't imagine why these clients would have sat through that, let
Yeah.
alone what happened to that book when they brought it home. I mean, I think I went to their house, one of them, and I saw a plan from 10 years ago, and I said, can I take a peek at that? And I was just like, oh my God, what was I thinking? So I found out that really, if you can just boil things down to the basics, if you do, here's where you are, here's where you want to be, here's your steps to do it, and here's the proposed outcome,
Hmm.
people take action on those couple of things. So this is just an example of a family, a typical family I work with. Um, they earn a decent income. They've been great savers. They maxed out their 401k since they had their job, and they really were all set. They've been
Hmm.
doing the things they should have been doing, but they realized things are getting a little bit more complicated, and they needed to make sure they're on the right track.
Hmm.
So first thing is, where are you? Here's their assets. The big thing I took a look at was their cash flow available to allocate 14,000 a year or an additional $1,200 a month from what they're doing. So I wasn't going to tell them, you know, you need to put $3,000 a month towards something when they only have 1,200. So let's go with what you're comfortable, what your resources are, and figure out how to make your key objectives go from partially funded to all green.
Right.
So they wanted to retire. They wanted their son to go to BC. They wanted their
Mm-hmm.
daughter to go to UMass. They knew they didn't have enough life insurance, and they wanted to be able to upgrade their home as the children grow.
Mm-hmm.
We took a look at the asset allocation versus asset location. Um, the key difference between those two is, asset allocation is stocks, bonds, the percentages a lot of people talk about. Asset location is, where is it? Is it available from a tax and liquidity standpoint? To achieve
Mm-hmm.
these goals, is the money going to be there? So, and then we took a look at what their tax bracket is and, showing up opportunities. And that opens up conversations about 401k versus Roth 401k and all these different tangents. The other factor that I want to make sure that people are aware of is the risk. And people think of risk as a bad thing. I think of it as how much of your future returns are you willing to trade for a smoother ride?
Mm-hmm.
So for a goal that's far away, if you're going to be doing something conservative that isn't going to perform as well because it helps you sleep at night, that's risk management. So
Yeah.
my job as a financial planner is trying to find out what the least amount of risk you can take to achieve your goals comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and helping my clients be okay with that risk and making sure that they don't panic and make a bad behavioral decision
Sure.
based on their risk tolerance. So this client currently had a risk of 49, and
Mm-hmm.
and that was way too low compared to what they should have been.
Yeah.
They were way too
Yeah.
conservative. There's no reason to be that conservative when their major goal of retirement is decades away. So we
Mm-hmm.
talked about risk and optimizing that as well. But the action steps that we had them take is increase their savings rate to 16%. So, we use the extra 1205 that they had
Mm-hmm.
available that they committed to putting their goals. We put $500 a month into a 529 plan for John,
Mm-hmm.
350 a month into a 529 plan for their daughter to go to I think she was going to UMass.
Mm-hmm.
Um, buy $1.5 million in term insurance on both the husband and wife,
Uh-huh.
and then switch Bob's 401k contributions to a Roth 401k. And then in the future, knowing down the road, once they're past those expensive years with the child care and preschools and stuff like that, at that point, we'll increase their 529 plan contributions
Gotcha.
to 650 and 500.
Yeah.
By doing these action steps, every single one of these goals that was 67% funded is now
Yep.
90, 17 to 95, 16 to
Wow.
95, 0 to 100,
Yeah.
and then upgrade the house. They were already on track for it, so we didn't do many changes on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is something that this family took this page home. They discussed it probably for 15 minutes and called me the next day and said, let's start opening those accounts and let's start taking care of it. Can you
Yeah.
walk us through how to implement this plan? And took them from A to Z
Yep.
in a couple months time. And now
Love it.
they are confident watching Netflix at 8 o'clock instead of stressing out over whose
Yeah.
responsibility it is to read about the tax code.
Yes. It's great because it puts so much like it's just clarity. It's not overwhelming with all the information and yeah, I love it. This is great. It's
Thank you.
fantastic. So as we wrap up your episode, what would be maybe like 3 takeaways that you would want listeners to get from what we talked about today?
You may be all set, but you may not be optimized is the key. Having someone who's done this hundreds of times for hundreds of families, who understands the intricacies of the little minute changes that can be made. So that's the first one.
Mhm.
Next one is you need to talk to your family about the finances. You need to make sure that you avoid yourself you know, humongous probate argument between your step siblings. I've
Yeah.
seen them happen.
Yeah.
You parents may really be all set, but do they have what their wishes in mind and communicated effectively with the future generations? Last thing
Mhm.
you want is to have someone arguing over who gets which asset, or they told me this, or that was my mom's, not not my stepdad's. And when
Yeah.
she passed
Yeah.
away, there's, there's things that you can take care of. You want your legacy to be the family, not leave behind a broken family of people arguing over things that could have been communicated well in advance. So,
Yeah.
um, those are my two. And the other one is don't skip the memories. Enjoy the ride.
Mm,
Make sure that you have the peace of mind that on an app it says your goals are 90% funded and you can afford that $5 coffee. You can afford that
yeah.
vacation. Not to drive this point home too much more, but you know, if you're 60 years old, you love Christmas.
Yeah.
Life expectancy may be 80.
Mm-hmm.
You have 20 Christmases. You don't have 20 years to enjoy the family and the grandkids. You have 20 Christmases.
Yep.
As that comes up, how are we going to spend one of those 20 Christmases? You might
Exactly.
love summer. You have 20 summer vacations left. You might have a child who's 10. I have 8 more summer vacations with that child.
Yep.
So enjoy those and don't skip the memories. Um, and if you have the peace of mind that you're doing the things you should to be on track, it opens up all the possibilities to fully embrace and enjoy the ride.
Yes. I love that. I love that. Scott, this has been such a great conversation. So many insights and wisdom in this that I think it's going to be really helpful for people at all stages of where they might be in their money situation. So at the end of each episode, I've been asking my guests the same question, kind of just collecting all these different answers that people come up with. So if I were to offer up the phrase to thrive in life, what comes up for you?
For me, to really thrive, it takes connections and relationships. And the foundation for that is communication and working together. So, to really thrive, you need to have a strong support unit in place and communication around that.
I love it. Beautiful. And I completely agree. Communication is everything. Well, Scott, thank you so much for taking the time today to come on the podcast and share all of this with our listeners. If they would like to get in touch with you for your services, learn more about you, where would they find you out in the world?
So my website is thrivewealthstrategies.com. I'm very active on LinkedIn, kind of active on Facebook. I'm building a YouTube channel with some of my
Okay.
top videos. So I would say follow me on those platforms or just reach out. My newsletter I send out weekly on
Okay.
different topics. Really, they're not crammed with financial planning numbers and Roth IRA limits and stuff like that. It's really anecdotes, case
Yeah.
studies,
Yeah.
uh, a newsletter that hopefully will resonate with people who have appreciated my message. So, um, if you want to subscribe to my newsletter, go to my website and there's a subscribe button as well. So
Okay.
appreciate
Perfect.
any new subscribers I get out of this
Yeah.
podcast.
Absolutely. And your blog posts, I've read several of your blog posts. Those are available on your website as well,
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Okay. Perfect. Perfect. Well, Scott, thanks again. And you never know, we might have you back on the podcast, talk more about finances. Such a
My
great
pleasure.
topic. All
Anytime. I love it. Thank you.
right. Thanks.